Iowa State, Kansas State, week 0, Dublin, Ireland. Man, what a game. Let's break it down, why don't we, huh? I say we just get into it, guys. Week 0 this year, man. Dublin, Ireland. I think we're calling them the Aer Lingus Kickoff Classic, if I'm not mistaken, is the name of these ones. We got Kansas State taking on Iowa State. This game is going to be a Saturday, August 23rd, if I'm not mistaken, week 0 game. There's a couple other games week 0, but this is, of course, by far the biggest one of the week. So I got some notes here that I want to rip off to you guys. Want to break this down, want to preview it. Let's go ahead, let's dive in. Let's start with the line. So the line is -3. At least that's the baseline we'll go with. We'll dive into those odds later in this video. I'll kind of put all the betting apps or websites, whatever you want to call them, if you are a bettor, on there for you. The line does differ website to website, but the baseline I'm going to go with right now, I think the open line is Kansas State is favored -3 points. So with that being said, let's start with Kansas State. So K-State started the season 7-1 last year. So it was a good team. Obviously, Avery Johnson, all the hype was there. They were picked to be one of the better teams in the Big 12, as they should have been. Kansas State was a good team. We knew they were going to be a good team. They were last year, right? They started the year 7-1. The tail end of the season kind of spun off just a little bit. I know they lost back-to-back games somewhere in there, if I'm not mistaken. It wasn't quite what they wanted. Now, funny enough, when we talk about this game, they did play Iowa State in the last regular season game of the year. I'm sure a lot of you guys remember that game. I'm sure a lot of you probably don't want to remember that game, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it up here so you do. Iowa State got the best of them in this last game of the year. Now, this one had some stipulations to it. If I'm not mistaken, I think the winner of this game had a pretty good chance to make it to the Big 12 championship, or Iowa State with a win pretty much had it in the bag. Something along those lines. Of course, Kansas State, I think there was more stipulations outside of it with BYU and Colorado and whatever else that is. But nonetheless, Kansas State ended up finishing the year 9-4. So not a bad season. All things considered, it wasn't the worst year, but it definitely wasn't what they wanted. So let's talk about Kansas State this year. 11 returning starters. Avery Johnson and Dylan Edwards, being 2 of those. So your starting quarterback and a experienced running back. I think DJ Giddens usually got the nod over Dylan Edwards here and there. But still, those are 2 great players. I also want to talk about Kansas State's offensive line. Their starting center, Sam Hecht, is back. Their starting right guard, Taylor Poiter, is also back. Okay, so that right side of the offensive line, right side-ish, and your center, obviously the quarterback of your offensive line, are both back. So that's a big thing to think about. Now, the reason I say their offensive line is they also picked up 2 big transfers. They got a guy from Pitt, and they got a guy from Penn State. Okay? And that was, I want to say, I wrote them down here. Where did I put them? JB Nelson and Terrence Enos. So those are 2 big guys. Both have played 30-plus games in college football. A good job out of Kansas State for beefing up that offensive line. Now, funny enough, they do that. This is a rushing attack with both DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards last year that averaged, I want to say, 5.9 yards per rush, which was good for 2nd in the country. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, Dylan Edwards is back. You beef up that offensive line. What does that run game look like? What do the trenches look like against Iowa State? That's going to be something to really watch this game. You know they're going to want to get that run game going early. They're going to want to get Dylan Edwards hot. You think about Avery Johnson's legs moving around. If you give him time, that's a scary, scary game. Now, Kansas State defensively, really not a lot to write home about last year. We'll see what they look like this year. Really, statistically, last year, that defense finished middle of the pack in almost every category you could think of. So this year, as long as there's not a drastic decline in performance, still should be a competitive defense. We'll see what they can get done. So, that's going to be really the big watch for Kansas State is that offensive side of the ball. Now, let's go ahead and let's jump to Iowa State. Matt Campbell and Rocco Becht. Those 2 names right there should be enough for you, right? Rocco Becht is back. Starting quarterback. He was there last year. He's back this year. Iowa State was a great team. They returned 14 starters, more than Kansas State does. Now, outside of the offense, on the defensive side of the ball, Iowa State gets their 2 starting corners back. Okay? And now, here's the reason I say that. And those 2 starting corners are Jeremiah Cooper and Jontez Williams. The reason I say that is because Iowa State last year finished second in opponent completion percentage per game with those two guys at the helm on the defensive outs at both corner positions. I want to say it was about 53%, maybe 54% if you want to round it up in there, opponent completion percentage per game. Now, you can obviously factor a lot of things into that. Pass rush, you can factor in, a multitude of things, just bad quarterback play on the other side of the ball. But you can't take the credit away from these two corners. They were excellent last year. I think they're going to be even better this year. So that's something that puts pressure on that Kansas State passing offense without a doubt. On the offensive side of the ball for Iowa State, Rocco Becht is back, but you lose Jalen Knoll. So that receiver position for me is going to be a big question in this game. How can Iowa State move the ball specifically through the air? That's going to be something to watch in this game. That's something I'm a little bit timid about, but we'll see. I don't think that's going to kill them. Last quirky fact I want you to think about before we get into the odds and wrap this thing up. Iowa State last year was the fourth least penalized team in college football. Fourth least. So number 4 in terms of not being penalized. I want to say 25 penalty yards per game last year. That's it. And that's a testament to a Matt Campbell coach team. So keep in mind, the reason I tell you that is week 0, mistakes are going to happen. It's the first game of the year. The nerves are there. You've prepared how long? Think about how many penalties usually we see in these games, how many of the boneheaded mistakes. This Iowa State team clearly does not make a lot. Last year they didn't. They typically don't, being coached by Matt Campbell. So keep an eye on that. We'll see, because penalties can absolutely change a game. That could make or break this game. Iowa State historically does not fall for that. So let's go ahead. Let's look at the odds on this one, because I think that's going to really tell us a lot of kind of where we want to put our money if you're someone that likes to bet. So with that being said, here are the odds for a lot of the websites. You can see we're kind of dabbling in that 3 to 2.5 being Caesars there. DraftKings has it up to 3.5. I think that's Caesars. I don't even know. Nonetheless, though, -3 being my baseline, I would almost like to see this thing be at like 1.5. It's like, I'm not a bettor, but if I had to put my own money on this, I would probably take Iowa State to cover that. I just think after the way last year ended for them, getting steamrolled by ASU in that Big 12 championship, after the emotional win against Kansas State, I just think they have a lot more coming in. Now, Kansas State also has that sour taste in their mouth of being derailed by Iowa State. So that being said, that's the line. That's really all I got for you guys. I'm excited for this game. This kicks off the college football season with a bang. So like, comment, subscribe, and I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you.